Hello, Singapland. My name is Michael Graglia. This is episode 196 of the Cure Singapore podcast. Today is Friday, January 16th, week 3 of the year 2026. It's JP Morgan week, which means a lot of biotech investors have flown in from Boston and New York and biotechs to San Francisco for a week of nonstop crazy meetings. All the companies we know and love, Stoke, Camp4, Praxis, Gondola, etc., have given presentations at JP Morgan, and I've been tracking all of them. I don't have time to take you through all of them, but I'll tell you the one that stopped me cold was Stoke Therapeutics. And I want to talk about it, not because it was particularly exciting, although it was, but because of the implications it has for our community. So before I tell you about the news from Stoke, I just have to refresh the audience's memory on the journey that Stoke Therapeutics has been on. To go way back, Stoke was created by the crack team that made Spinraza for spinal muscular atrophy. And then they said, okay, let's do something similar. Let's use an ASO to cure central nervous system / developmental and epileptic encephalopathy type diseases. And they started with Dravet. In 2020, 6-7 years ago, 2020, they took their technology, their Tango technology, and they decided to apply it to Dravet. And they launched Monarch, which was a US phase 1 study, and Butterfly, which was a natural history study. And so obviously the people in phase 1 were getting a little bit of drug. The people in the natural history study were just being monitored for 2 years. And this allowed them to say, hey, FDA, here's the people on drug and what they look like. Here's the people on the natural history study. See, the drug really is making them better. First human doses in 2020, though, in phase 1, right? In 2021, they went up on dose in Monarch in the US because the FDA made them start at sort of levels that were crazy low but very safe, which is traditional of the risk profile of the FDA, at least back then. And then the Admiral study started in the UK, 2021. Behind the scenes, we think preclinical proof of concept work was happening with SYNGAP1. In 2022, the Butterfly, the natural history study, stopped data collection. They had 2 years of data on their patients. And that year, Stoke and Acadia announced they were partnering to work on SYNGAP1. Acadia basically bought in to the SYNGAP program for $60 million up front and then an agreement to share costs going forward. This was exceptionally exciting for us. We were waving our flags because before that, it's like, oh yeah, Stoke's working on SYNGAP, but people can turn off programs like that. Now you got enough going on behind the scenes that Acadia felt comfortable giving Stoke $60 million, and now 2 companies have to decide to kill the program. Pretty exciting in 2022. We were like, yeah, maybe next year. And people were like, yeah, maybe not. In 2023, they completed Monarch and Admiral, the phase 1 and 2A studies. That was completed in November, right? And they did present their Tango platform at AES, at our SYNGAP conference, by the way. That was 2023. In 2024, they had amazing data. They showed that their highest dose, 70 milligrams, reduced seizures 80% in Dravet patients. This was exceptional. And SYNGAP1 moved into lead optimization, which means they got a bunch of different things that work on SYNGAP. They're trying to figure out which one. 2025, last year, the phase 3 trial was launched. In fact, exactly a year ago. At AAS, they announced they were doing phase 3. And the first patient was dosed 8 months later. 8 months later, on I think August 11th, 2025. R&D spending on SYNGAP was going up, by the way. Here we are in 2026, and that brings me to our big news. And I'll share the link in the show notes. First link in the show notes will be Stoke's press release. And what they said to the market, this is a publicly traded company talking about their lead program. These words are carefully crafted, reviewed by lawyers, communications people, CEOs, every word in these things has a lot of eyes on it. And they said to the world, to all their investors, we think we're going to bring forward our timeline. They didn't say 6 to 12 months, but if you compare what they said at JP Morgan this week, which what they said before, basically they're bringing forward their timeline 6 to 12 months, right? They're saying they could begin a rolling NDA submission in early 2027, and they could do a readout on the phase 3 data, in midpoint 2027. That's amazing. Why is that happening? Because people are beating down the door to get into the study. Why are people beating down the door to get into this study? Well, let's give that a think, right? The community's had time to see all those patients who did the phase 1 and the phase 2, and those patients have gone on to OLE. Why should you do phase 1, phase 2? Mike, this is what I hear from a very small number of patients who make me crazy. Mike, I'm not sure I want to do phase 1, 2 in the Camp 4 study or the whatever study comes next. Maybe I'll just wait and see. Guys, waiting and seeing, the reason I just told you the Stoke story is waiting and seeing could take years. But what if I get placebo? What if you get placebo? You get placebo for the duration of the study, but at the end of the study, you stop getting placebo and you start getting drug. The people who get into phase 1, phase 2 for a trial for a disease-modifying therapy will get drug. They will either get it at the beginning of the study or at the end of the study when everyone goes into OLE. Brings me back to Stoke. What percentage of the people who are in the study are still on OLE? 90+%. That doesn't happen if the thing's not working, guys. That doesn't happen if the thing's not working. So those patients who are courageous enough to get into phase 1, 2, they're all on OLE right now, saying in hushed voices, my kid's getting better. The seizures are going down. The function's coming back. This is a disease-modifying therapy. And that is what we hope and pray and expect, based on the preclinical data, to see happen with the Camp 4, ASO, and then whoever comes next, be it Stoke, be it Gondola, be it Praxis, be whoever gets their act together and makes another ASO for SYNGAP. So the Stoke study is so worth studying, is so worth understanding, because I think the reason that the patients are banging down the door for phase 3 is because they've had enough time to pay attention, learn about Stoke, learn about ASOs, and they are now chomping at the bit, right? That is incredibly exciting. And I think in part of it is the world is changing and people are realizing how lucky they are to have a disease-modifying therapy offered to them. And also they've had a chance to look at the phase 1, 2 patients and be like, that's pretty exciting. So I share this with you because I want you to understand that ASO therapies are happening, that parents are getting comfortable. Thousands of people have Dravet, guys. 81 patients were in Monarch and Admiral. They're enrolling 150 in Emperor. This is the phase 3 US trial, and they're going to add 20-ish patients somewhere in Europe to go along with that. That's it. In this world where hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of patients are suffering with Dravet, we are talking about 250 who are going to be lucky enough to get this drug before it is marketed. And I want to be able to say the same thing about SYNGAP1 in the not too distant future. I firmly believe, building on the incredible work that Stoke has done, that Camp 4 and then whoever's next, Stoke, Praxis, Gondola, whomever, they enroll much, much faster because we have learned so much from this experience. So really exciting. Congratulations to our friends at Stoke. I want to just blow through a couple of other things. We have a blog post up about Marcin. Marcin is a father and son who traveled from Poland, which is a really long way away, all the way to CHOP to take part in our Promise Natural History Study. The Promise Natural History Study, I've said this to you for years, guys. The reason we have to do a natural history study, the reason we are doing a natural history study is so that people can say to the FDA with a straight face, look at these drug results. This drug works. Compare it to the natural history study. Natural history studies work if they are funded, which they are courtesy of donors at CHOP and Cure SYNGAP1. If patients show up, that's up to you. You got to show up. You got to take part in these studies. Indeed, Marcin showed up and traveled from Poland because he wanted to make sure that his son's genetic profile was part of this study, so he understood how his son showed up. And if you're sitting anywhere in the United States of America, or Canada for that matter, we have 3 sites: CHOP, Colorado, Stanford. Get on a plane, get on a bus, get on a train, get on a tricycle. I don't care. But get into the natural history study. Be like Marcin and support this incredible effort. I'm going to tear through things in 10 seconds. Camp 4 has a new website. SYNGAP patients are on it. Check it out. It's really well done. Our newsletter is out. Thank you as ever, Ed. curesyngap1.org/NL49. Sara Driscoll's genetic testing blog is up. Share it, copy it, talk about genetic testing. We need more patients. We get more patients through more genetic testing. Pubmed is at 3. We're in week 3. That's good news. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week.